Hey, I'm Jess Willie. I'm a TV and media critic who occasionally branches out to other stuff. I've got some pretty cool friends. A little strange, maybe, but cool. There's Nick, an AI copy of a buddy of mine from college that I installed on my smart TV. He's supposed to keep the show on track, but he spends more time watching Brazilian cooking shows. There's King Ralph Detritus, an old toy from my childhood who is somehow alive, and he rules a massive underground kingdom from a stronghold in my basement. There's Zylogaphia P. Robinson. She's a magical winter elf who started out as an observer from the International Internet Reviewers Guild, but she sorta went native. So if you want to know the story, go and watch the back catalog. If you're just interested in a review of the thing you clicked on, sit back, relax, and don't ask questions. Or if you have questions, leave them in the comments. Maybe I'll answer. The only question you can be sure I'm gonna answer is, did I get what I paid for? So, what are we gonna review?
I know you want to use your last callback episode for something special at the end of the season. I guess that means we're starting with foreign flops.
But I don't wanna.
What do you really have to complain about? All you do is summarize stuff and make stupid jokes. How hard can that be?
I've subbed in for him a few times. It's harder than it looks.
Maybe, but it's still not so hard that any of us couldn't do it.
Really? I would love to see the three of you try. I'll, sit in the corner and make a few quips on the sidelines. Fine. Once I find out what country I'm assigned.
Let me activate my TV and cinema randomizer. It looks like you get it.
Come on, Czech Republic, come on, Czech Republic. Daddy needs a new pair of shoes.
You get our neighbors from the north, the masters of maple syrup, Canada.
It just so happens that Jess and I binge watched a marathon of the Red Green Show.
You mean the sketch comedy series that spun off of the failed Canadian sitcom Me and Max, and then found itself becoming a reoccurring segment on the Comedy Mill before becoming its own show? A spin-off that lasted for 15 years. 3 times longer than the character's 2 previous shows combined. A rare feat that places it, along with The Simpsons, Law & Order SVU, and Star Trek The Next Generation, as spin-offs that had more episodes than the parent series. That Red Green Show?
Yes, that Red Green Show.
I'll allow it.
Wait, did you just give a history segment?
What? No! Of course not. I wouldn't do some stupid stuff like history. History's for nerds.
Yeah, of course you wouldn't. Anyway, after countless hours, I finally realized every Red Green episode is the same. The opening sketch has Possum Lodge's leader, Red Green, presented with a small everyday problem by his nephew Harold, or sometimes another member of the lodge. It's an issue that a normal person could have resolved in 20 seconds, but these people are idiots, so they have to ask the biggest idiot they know for help. And he only makes things worse. You know, I would have absolutely no idea what that's like. They cut to a ripoff of Password or another game show, usually with corny jokes about their wives. Wives that we never see. Which kind of makes you wonder, wink, wink.
Like, that doesn't seem totally dated.
That would have passed for a joke in the 90s. And then we get either a silent movie, or if it's a later season where they have a budget, we get to see inside the local isolated forest fire monitor's mind, which apparently looks like an early 2000s slash animation for some reason.
But then comes the best part of the show, the how-to segments.
Those only seem funny if you've never seen Jess try to cook or fix a bicycle.
Or shoot a video.
That's not a fair comparison. Red's experiments are far less deadly and use less duct tape.
Hey!
Red talks to one of his friends about a household project they're working on, and it turns into a disaster. Oftentimes, Red is the only one who avoids getting killed. After that, Red thinks he's Andy Rooney wrapping up an episode of 60 Minutes. Then somehow, whatever the problem was, solves itself. And that's it. That's the show.
Aren't you forgetting something?
What?
The rant rap?
Red Green has ascertained things never change, and what works always works. Charm going for it. It is perfect TV comfort food. It's called the Canadian Whose Line Is It Anyway for a reason.
Speaking of Whose Line Is It Anyway, 2 of the episodes we watched featured Colin Mockery.
But those were in later seasons. Both sketches were shot on the same set, so I suspect they had him for one afternoon and they shot as many sketches as possible. While I wouldn't recommend binge watching the show like I did, it's entertaining and good for late night viewings between Monty Python's Flying Circus and Red Dwarf.
Which is how I discovered the show back in college.
$20 says everything we're reviewing today is stuff you discovered when you were in college.
Considering that Jess's TV habits haven't changed much in 30 years, that's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah!
That was short. Let's do something else. Engaging G-Graph randomizer for round 2.
Uganda, come on, Uganda, you can do it.
Nope, it says the United Kingdom.
Which triggers the NEP,
NEP,
Mixed Entertainment Protocol.
which means
I get to pick.
you didn't win at bingo. Why do you get to?
I've been using the randomizer. For all you know, I've been picking this whole time.
Well, that didn't seem fair.
No arguing, please.
Okay, we're doing an episode of a classic Doctor Who serial. But which one?
An Unearthly Child, Episode 1.
Our story begins with this beat cop patrolling the street. For some reason, he decides to go into the junkyard. I guess he got tired of a bunch of kids breaking in order to learn life lessons. But they aren't there. He just sees a police box. Law and order noise here.
The camera spends an awful lot of time focusing on it. No way that becomes important later.
We cut to the local high school where 2 teachers, Barbara White and Ian Chesterton, are in the lounge complaining about one of their students, Susan Foreman. She's rather odd. She seems to know everything. Well, anything complicated, she doesn't understand anything else.
Sounds like you did it perfectly down here.
Barbara said that she offered to help Susan apply for AP classes. However, they'd have to do the paperwork at Susan's home. She gets told that Susan's grandfather wouldn't like that. So, Barbara does what any responsible teacher would do. She stalks her student.
That's not creepy at all, right?
At least the school is only sending 2 teachers, In Ferris Bueller, keeping track of wayward students was the vice principal's job.
He had other reasons for doing that.
Yeah, we shouldn't talk about that. So where does Susan live? She's a white suburban teen in the 1960s, so I'm guessing a fancy mansion.
Guess again. Barbara finds out that Susan's home address is, dun-dun, the city junkyard. Ian says, oh well, nothing we can do. And Barbara says, we can always double check. And then Ian says, I don't think that's a good idea. And then Barbara says, too bad. If you'd been willing to come along, I would have let you get to first base. And then that poor dog Ian says, well, in that case. Oh, yeah.
Barbara says, down, boy. It's only lunchtime. Before we do that, we got 4 more class periods. I'm supposed to meet with Susan during the 7th period to lend her a book. She'll come.
They go there. They chat with Susan but learn absolutely nothing. They offer her a ride home. She says, nah, I have a task to finish. And then I want to take a nice walk in the cold, dark London fog.
What's this big task she's got to do? Simple. Create new cards for the Rorschach test.
While waiting for Susan to arrive, Ian has second thoughts. Barbara says, don't you want to know why she knows how many protons are in uranium, but doesn't know how many shillings are in a pound? And Ian says, I don't care about that kind of shit, baby. And then Barbara says, fine, but we shot a montage of stuff Susan did wrong and moments of her being a genius, so the BBC is going to make us run them anyway.
It all seems pretty normal. Until we see a flashback where Ian tries to trick her with equations that can only be solved by introducing 2 more dimensions. But she manages to do it no problem.
Wait, their complaint is she's super smart at cool stuff and a bit of a flake on boring stuff? Ah, she's a girl with ADHD. So what?
I'm pretty sure that was illegal back then.
Yeah, that tracks.
Barbara notices Susan going into the junkyard alone. Ian asks, are you sure she isn't meeting a boy? And hey, if this were the new Doctor Who, she'd be meeting a girl. Or a boy and a girl. Or maybe a gender-amorphous, shape-shifting cephalopod. Oh, yeah.
They go into the junkyard and they don't find her. They do come across that police box and it's vibrating.
I am not touching that one.
Barbara starts to go look for a cop. Then this old man walks by and coughs. He starts entering the police box when they hear Susan. So they turn around and ask him what's going on. And he goes all Clint Eastwood voice and says, get off my lawn. And he pulls out some guns and goes, bang, 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 bang. Only minus the gun part.
They say they heard her in there, and the cops would be really interested in what a creepy old dude would be doing in a small police box with a 15-year-old girl. But he has the audacity to try to gaslight them.
At which point Susan opens the door. They go inside. Ian and Barbara are so confused by the whole bigger on the inside than it is on the outside thing that they don't do anything to stop the doctor from verbally abusing Susan. Right as they're about to, he tells them to get the fuck out.
Ian asks, how the hell is this happening? The doctor says, I'm not going to explain my time machine. If I do, it will become a trope every time I pick up a traveling companion. So let's not and say we did.
Ian says, and the doctor says, in a cowboy voice, we're time traveling aliens, partner. And Susan says, Gramps, if we let them leave now, their minds won't accept any of this. They'll write it off as a dream, which would be a great solution to their problem. And the doctor says, I have a better idea. Let's hold them hostage as we continue our travels.
Why?
Let me put this in terms you'll understand. Something, something, yada, yada, prime directive.
After that, the TARDIS is like a train at Metro Center. It leaves at the worst possible time. And that's it. That's the episode.
Doctor Who might have become a classic sci-fi TV series, but it didn't start that way. It seems more like a bad educational show for kids. How it caught on is beyond me.
The start was a little rocky, but it gets better.
Yeah, around the time Patrick Troughton showed up.
No, John Pertwee.
I think you mean Tom Baker.
All three of you are wrong, David Tennant.
If we quit debating this, there is time for one more thing.
Let me use magic to fix the randomizer. Ralph and I did not have Canada and the UK in mind when we said we should review foreign stuff.
Okay, but according to this, our next stop is the home of some of the most pretentious cinema ever made.
So, France, gotcha. The French. Are we in for a treat? I know just the thing. La Voyage dans la Luna.
You're not hosting this one.
Oh, yeah, right.
Our story begins at the unseen university where Mustrum Ridgely is hosting a party. He and the other wizards get into a drunken argument. They decide the best way to settle things is to stuff themselves into a giant bullet and blast the moon.
Did their moms get them a giant Daisy Red Ryder BB gun to get them there? Because, spoiler alert, they'll shoot someone's eye out.
The launch sequence gives off Star Trek the Motion Picture vibes.
I don't remember there being chorus girls in the motionless picture.
If there were chorus girls, I wouldn't have fallen asleep.
The bullet is fired out of the cannon and, well, I hate to say this, but Jess, you were wrong. Anyway, they get out of the bullet not wearing spacesuits.
And undergo explosive decompression. The end, or fin, as they say in French.
No, they watch an Earth rise and set. They're tired and take a nap. The chorus girls come back in the form of planets and stars that cruise by as they sleep. But then it starts to rain.
On the moon? Next will tell me they quashed their hunger by eating some of the green cheese.
The movie was made in 1902. Cut it some slack. They seek shelter underground to discover a kingdom straight out of Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World. They try to use giant mushrooms to make umbrellas, but get attacked by a giant bug smurf creature. They kill it, but it keeps respawning. And after a while, a whole swarm of them attack.
They get captured and dragged back to the bug people's castle. They kill a few more and escape. The palace guards attack. The astronauts reason the best solution is to commit genocide? But Gil Scott Heron was right. I can't pay my cell phone bill, and
They head back to their ship and simply push it off a cliff, causing it to fall all the way back to Earth.
They land in the water. Then Richard Nixon and pretty much everyone else on the planet hold a parade in their honor.
And that's it. That's the movie. This is what was considered a movie at one point in time.
Okay, the science was way off, but there was a lot about this movie to love. It more or less invented two things filmgoers take for granted these days. The first being special effects. Well, very primitive by today's standards, Georges Méliès invented the concept, and this film was his masterpiece. The other is that it is one of the earliest known science fiction films. Well, there may have been some before this. Few of them have survived. None that do exist look anything like this. The entire genre as we know it would not exist without this movie.
What he said. See you next time, folks.
What did Mr. Hedgehog do to deserve that? No like and subscribe, no like and subscribe, no like and subscribe. Well, in that case, he should go to patreon.com/parodyerrorfilms and become a patron today.